Virgo. The email landed at 11:47. Or maybe it was the text. Maybe it was the notification from a name you had muted 6 months ago because the sound of their certainty was giving you migraines. It does not matter which vessel carried the news. What matters is the precise molecular shift that occurred in the room where you were standing when you read it. The air did not shimmer. There was no orchestral swell. The fluorescent lights above your head did not flicker in cinematic sympathy. But something happened. A tiny, almost imperceptible adjustment in the barometric pressure of your personal reality. And in that adjustment, you felt it, the click, the soft, devastating click of a lock turning that you had been told did not exist. You looked up, not because you needed confirmation, but because your body knew, before your mind had finished parsing the words on the screen, that the geometry of the room had changed. And if there were other people present, co-workers, family, the loose constellation of acquaintances who had made you their unofficial punching bag for predictions they found inconvenient, you would have seen it. The exact moment when the blood drained from their faces. Not dramatically, not like in the movies where jaws drop and glasses shatter. No, the real version is much quieter and much more delicious. The real version is a subtle graying of the lips, a tightening of the skin around the eyes, a swallow that travels down the throat like a stone dropped into a well, a sudden, frantic need to check their own phones, as if by verifying the information on their own screen they could somehow neutralize its impact. They could not, because reality, for once, had chosen to obey you. And the obedience of reality is the most humbling thing a skeptic can witness. Let me take you back, because the sweetness of this moment is entirely dependent on the bitterness of the one that preceded it. Do you remember the room? Of course you do. You remember the temperature, the quality of the light, the exact pitch of the laugh that was not quite loud enough to be called mocking, but not quite soft enough to be called polite. You were there. You were present. You were, as always, the one who had done the math that everyone else was too lazy or too invested to attempt. You saw the crack in the foundation. You smelled the gas leak. You traced the trajectory of the bullet before the trigger was even pulled. And you did the only thing your nature allows you to do. You spoke. You opened your mouth and you let the truth fall out in the exact, meticulous, unadorned language that is your native tongue. You did not dress it up. You did not make it palatable. You did not attach a joke to the end of it to soften the blow. You simply said what was coming, and they laughed, not all of them, but enough. Enough to make the silence that followed your words feel like a cage. Enough to make your palms sweat with the particular humiliation of being the only sober person in a room full of drunks who have decided that sobriety is the real disease. Someone called you paranoid. Someone else, with that tone of exhausted benevolence that people use when they are about to say something deeply condescending, suggested that you were reading too much into it. Another person, maybe the one you loved most in that room, maybe the one whose opinion you had mistakenly weighted above your own, exchanged a look with someone else. A look you were not supposed to catch. A look that said, "There she goes again. There he goes again." Always with the doom. Always seeing the worst. And you felt it. The familiar shrinkage. The way your shoulders curled inward by a fraction of a degree. The way your voice, which had been steady when you started, developed a slight tremor that you hated because you knew they would mistake it for uncertainty rather than the rage of being unheard. You finished your sentence. You always finish your sentences. That is your curse and your power. You do not trail off. You do not qualify. You plant the flag and you stand beside it, even when the ground is being salted around you. Then the subject changed. Someone brought up a television show. Someone else mentioned a restaurant. The conversation, which had been a living thing with your warning at its center, slithered away from you and wrapped itself around safer topics. You were left holding the bag of your own truth, heavy and unshared, while they passed around the light appetizers of their mutual reassurance. You went home that night and you stood in front of your mirror, and you asked yourself the question that only the truly accurate ever ask: was I wrong? You ran the numbers again. You checked the data. You walked back through the sequence of events, the causal chain, the pattern that you had recognized not because you are psychic in the carnival sense, but because you are Virgo in the architectural sense. You see load-bearing walls. You see stress fractures. You see the termites chewing through the joists while everyone else is admiring the paint. And after your review, you came to the same conclusion. You were not wrong. You were early. And early in the human calendar is indistinguishable from wrong until the clock catches up. So you waited, not with hope, not with the desperate, clenched prayer of someone who needs to be validated. You waited with the patience of a geologist who knows the earthquake is coming because she has measured the pressure on the fault line. You did not bring it up again. You did not circle back. You did not send articles or screenshots or passive-aggressive reminders. You simply held the knowledge in your body like a stone in your pocket, smooth and cold and secret, and you went about your life. You did your work, you washed your dishes, you paid your bills, you let them forget that you had ever said anything at all. That was your strategy. That was your discipline. And now the stone is warm because the earth has moved, because the fault line has slipped, because the prediction has arrived, dressed in the exact clothing you described, carrying the exact consequences you mapped, and it has walked into the room and sat down in the chair you reserved for it. I want to describe the specific quality of their shock because it is important that you recognize it and do not mistake it for respect. Not yet. What they are feeling right now is not admiration. It is cognitive dissonance with a pulse. It is the violent collision between the story they have been telling themselves about you, the story where you are anxious, obsessive, negative, dramatic, unable to just relax and let things flow, and the story that reality has just published with your name in the byline. Their brains are currently scrambling to edit the new information into the old narrative without breaking the spine of their ego. They are trying to find a loophole. Yes, but you were off about the timing. Or you got lucky. Or anyone could have seen that coming. Watch for these phrases. They will arrive within hours, sometimes minutes, of the revelation. They are the death rattles of a worldview that cannot survive your accuracy. Do not engage with them. Do not correct them. Do not offer the timeline of your original prediction with timestamps and footnotes. Let them choke on their own revisions. Your silence is the only verdict you need to deliver. But here is the deeper truth, the one that lives beneath the satisfaction of being right. You did not want this. Not really, not the vindication, not the public proof. What you wanted, what you have always wanted, was for them to listen in time, for them to hear the warning while there was still room to swerve. You would have traded every ounce of this righteous confirmation for the simple, invisible miracle of them taking your hand and stepping back from the ledge before the ground gave way. That is the part they will never understand about you. They think you predict disasters because you enjoy disasters. They think you see the cracks because you want the building to fall. They do not understand that you see the cracks because you love the building, because you love them. Because your love is not the warm, fuzzy kind that hands out participation trophies. Your love is the structural kind. The kind that inspects the foundation in the middle of the night while everyone else is sleeping. The kind that says, this will not hold, not because it wants to be right, but because it wants everyone to survive the winter. And that is why this moment is so dangerous for you. Because the temptation, now that reality has obeyed you, is to become the thing they accused you of being, the doomsayer, the oracle of negativity, the one who only speaks when there is blood in the water. The temptation is to let this validation calcify into arrogance, to start seeing yourself as the only one with eyes, to let the bitterness of having been dismissed flavor every future warning with a note of, I told you so, before you even open your mouth. Do not do it. Do not let their failure to hear you become the defining feature of your voice. You are not a prophet of catastrophe. You are a cartographer of consequence, and consequence flows in both directions. You can see the bloom as clearly as you can see the rot. You can see the healing as clearly as you can see the wound. The fact that they only listen when you speak of collapse is their limitation, not yours. Do not shrink your range to match their fear. Let me tell you what is going to happen in the next 48 hours, because the aftermath is as important as the event. They are going to reach out, not all at once, in waves. The first wave will be the bravest or the most desperate. The one who laughed the loudest will be the first to slide into your DMs with a tentative, hey, so crazy thing happened. As if they are breaking the news to you. As if you had not already drawn the blueprint for this exact crazy thing while they were busy decorating the walls of their denial. Do not answer immediately. Not because you are playing a game, but because your energy is precious and you need to feel the texture of their approach before you decide what to do with it. Are they coming to apologize? Or are they coming to borrow your vision now that their own has failed them? Listen for the difference. An apology sounds like I should have listened. A transaction sounds like, so what do you think happens next? You are not a vending machine for predictions. You are not their emergency psychic now that their own optimism has filed for bankruptcy. If they want your counsel, let them ask for it properly. Let them kneel at the altar of your accuracy with the appropriate humility. And if they cannot manage that, let them manage without you. The second wave will be quieter. It will be the ones who did not laugh, but who did not defend you either. The ones who sat in the middle, who nodded politely at your warning and then changed the subject, who wanted to stay on your good side without risking their position in the room. They will come with compliments disguised as confessions. I always knew you were intuitive. I had a feeling you were right. Do not accept these. They are not gifts. They are receipts. They are proof of purchase, for a cowardice that cost you your peace of mind in that room 6 months ago. Thank them silently and keep moving. You do not need retrospective allies. You need present ones. You need the rare, endangered species of human who can hear an inconvenient truth and sit with it while it is still inconvenient, not just after it has been confirmed by the evening news. And then there is the third wave, the one that matters most, the one that does not come by text or call, the one that arrives in your own body in the middle of the night when the adrenaline of vindication has finally drained away and you are left with the hollow, ringing truth of what your accuracy actually costs. You will feel it as a loneliness that has no name, because being right is isolating, because the view from the top of the mountain of consequences is beautiful and cold, because you now know with a certainty that no one can take from you, that you are operating on a different frequency than the people around you, and that frequency does not always have company. You will lie in the dark, and you will feel the weight of every prediction you have ever buried, every vision you have ever silenced because you were tired of being called crazy, every truth you have swallowed because the cost of speaking it was higher than the cost of letting the room burn. Let yourself feel that weight. It is not depression. It is the gravity of gift. It is the atmospheric pressure of a planet that is larger than the one everyone else is walking on. You were built for this pressure, but you were not built to carry it without acknowledgement. So acknowledge yourself. Place your hand on your chest and say out loud in the dark, I saw, I knew, I was right. Let the room hear it, even if the room is empty. Especially then, there is a physical protocol for this kind of vindication, and I want you to follow it because your body is currently flooded with a chemistry that can become toxic if it is not metabolized properly. The chemistry of I was right is a stimulant. It raises cortisol. It tightens the jaw. It makes the eyes sharp and the tongue sharper. You need to move it through, not by screaming, not by confronting, not by posting a cryptic quote that only the guilty will understand. You need to move it through sweat, through water, through the simple, brutal act of walking until your legs are tired and your mind is quiet. You need to eat something heavy and grounding, root vegetables, red meat if you eat it, brown rice, things that grow in the dark, wet earth. You need to remind your body that despite your ability to see the invisible, you are still made of meat and bone, and you still belong to the ground. Do not let the vindication lift you so high that you forget where your roots are. That is how seers go mad. That is how the gift becomes a weapon. Stay low, stay heavy, stay human. Now, let me speak to the future, because this moment is not an ending. It is a credential. It is the universe handing you a certificate that says, this one sees. Do not dismiss her. Do not dismiss him. And that certificate changes the terms of every engagement you enter from this day forward. People will look at you differently, some with fear, some with greed, some with the desperate hunger of addicts who need their next hit of certainty in an uncertain world. You must be vigilant about who you allow to feed from your vision. Not everyone deserves a seat at the table of your intuition. Not everyone has earned the right to hear your premonitions. Start treating your insight like currency, like water in a drought, like medicine that can only be dispensed by prescription. The days of volunteering your warnings to rooms full of people who have not asked for them are over. You have paid the price of that generosity. You have been mocked, dismissed, gaslit, and exiled from the warm center of communal delusion. You do not owe your vision to anyone. Let them come to you. Let them knock. Let them prove by their humility and their consistency that they are worthy of the light you carry. And when they do come, and they will, because reality has a way of educating the stubborn, charge them appropriately. Not necessarily with money, though your gift is absolutely worthy of material exchange. Charge them with respect. Charge them with attention. Charge them with the promise that when you speak, they will listen, not just with their ears, but with their lives. That they will act on what you say, not just file it away as an interesting anecdote to be validated or forgotten depending on the weather. That they will treat your accuracy as the serious, sacred, structural phenomenon that it is. And if they cannot pay that price, let them go to cheaper oracles. Let them find comfort in the vague and the flattering. You are not here to comfort. You are here to correct. You are here to align. You are here to say, with the full weight of your track record behind you, this is what is coming. Adjust accordingly. And if they choose not to adjust, let the consequences be their tutor. You are not their savior. You are their mirror. And mirrors do not weep when the face they reflect turns away. I want to close with an image. I see you in a room, not the old room, a new one. The walls are a color you have not chosen yet. The light is coming from a direction you have not seen in your current life. You are standing at a table, and on the table is a map, not a map of where you have been, a map of where you are going. And around the table are faces, not many, 3, maybe 4. And these faces are different from the ones in the old room. These faces do not flinch when your finger traces a fault line. These faces do not laugh when you name the storm. These faces watch your hands with the reverence of students who have finally found a teacher who speaks their language. And you are not performing. You are not trying to be believed. You are simply reading the map in a voice that is steady, unhurried, and completely free of the need to convince, because the need to convince has died. It died the moment reality obeyed you. And in its place grows something older and more powerful, the quiet authority of someone who no longer needs permission to see. So let them choke on their own surprise. Let them scroll back through the conversation where you called it. Let them sit in the silence of their own wrongness and feel the full, exquisite discomfort of having underestimated the one person in the room who was telling the truth. You do not need to hand them a magnifying glass. You do not need to highlight the passage or underline the date. The evidence is doing its own work now. The reality they mocked is now the reality they are living. And you are already gone. You are already 3 steps ahead, squinting at the horizon, reading the next set of signs, preparing the next warning for the next room, hoping against hope that this time someone will listen before the wall crumbles. But if they do not listen, you will speak anyway, because that is who you are. That is what Virgo does when she has been forged in the fire of dismissal. She does not stop seeing. She does not stop saying. She simply learns to carry the loneliness of accuracy with the same grace that others carry the comfort of delusion, and she walks on through the rubble of their collapsed certainty, through the smoke of their burning assumptions, through the quiet, holy, unshakable knowing that the world eventually bends toward the truth, and that she was never full of crap. She was just full of vision. And the vision, as it turns out, was never hers alone. It was reality, whispering its secrets to the one quiet mind disciplined enough to hear. Now go. Let the silence do the talking, and watch what obeys you next.